I recently received a letter from Mike Cohn, and it was a good one. It was about agile leadership, and I'm trying to recall the exact title of the email. I want to say the title of the email was Short Answers to Big Questions About Agile Leaders. And that was intriguing to me because I always thought to myself, if I ever had a chance to sit down with someone like Mike Cohn or Jeff Sutherland or Ken Schwaber or Dave West or any of those pillars in the community that aren't me, what would I ask them? How would I ask them? What would I say? And what would be important enough for me to take their time and to, get their opinion on? And leadership was always one of those topics. And Mike kicks it off by saying there are three qualities that define an agile leader. First, agile leaders are comfortable with uncertainty. They are willing to hear and say, I don't know. They understand not everything can be stated with certainty, and this means that they can accept it when a team says that'll be done in 5 or 6 months, because that's how long it'll take. Second, agile leaders guide, they don't command. An agile leader does not tell people the specific steps to take to achieve a goal. Instead, the agile leader creates a culture of teamwork, transparency, and continuous improvement. This environment empowers team members to achieve great things. And third, agile leaders do less but accomplish more. Agile leaders are rarely in a flurry of activity. Instead, they motivate and inspire others to do more of the right things the easier way. They empower people. And he makes a reference that I really love here to one of my favorite jazz artists. He talks about the great Thelonious Monk was known for leaving silence between the notes he played. He said, what you don't play can be even more impactful and important than what you do. That is so true. Like Monk, an agile leader knows that what they don't do, where they leave that space, can be more important than what they actually do. I just want to say that this reminds me of the quote that I heard from Nelson Mandela, where he was at a tribal council with his grandson, and his grandson challenged him and said, you're letting these people go on and on. You could solve this in a minute. Why don't you just say what you want them to do and get on with it? Move on. And of course, he smiled. Nelson Mandela smiled and said, "Yeah, it would be easy for me to tell them an answer. It would be easy for me to tell them exactly what they need to do." He says, "But if I did that," he says, "then they would have no experience sharing their opinion." He says, "I would never know if one of their ideas was better than mine." He says, "They would just automatically agree with my opinion." He says, "This is the only way we'll ever grow and find new leaders is if we let people talk it out." And I think that sometimes great agile leaders forget this. So the part of this article that stood out the most to me was the part that I had from one of my students. It was a question for one of my students. They asked about, how do I inspire agile leaders to change? How do we make a case for change? And agile leaders know that the best way to persuade others to focus on one compelling reason for change is not to try to convince them with a list of benefits, right? If you try to convince people with a list of benefits, you're not going to get much going on. It sounds crazy because you think, if I give them the top 10 reasons why change is good, then they're going to want to change. But if you tell me there are 4 reasons I should make a change I don't want to make, I'm going to pick the weakest of your 4 points and argue with you about it. It's true. My argument may not convince you, but I'll convince myself that I've parried that point. And with one less point in favor of the change you want to make, I'll convince myself that I can continue resisting and get out of the change. So don't try to persuade someone with a laundry list of reasons Agile's better, or Agile's better than what you're doing today, or that you know more than they do. Instead, just focus on one compelling reason, one thing different that you can do that really does make a difference, that's impactful to both the team and the organization. It's going to go a lot further. Agile leaders also are responsible for creating a safe environment for learning. Oh my goodness, I've said this. Just last week, we were talking about how fewer and fewer companies are willing to put up the bucks to have in-house training or in-house coaching. And we're talking about how that shift in the marketplace has shifted to online learning and to using tools like AI. And which I can't say that I blame them, because training is expensive. It was Richard Branson who was confronted about training. Somebody told him this, Richard, they said, we found the answer to your problems. They said, if you want to save Virgin America Airlines, they said, all you have to do is cut your training budget by about a third. They said, if you cut out 33 to 40% of your training budget, you'll be able to keep the airlines and move forward and everything will be good. He says, besides, what happens if you train all those people and then they leave your company and go work somewhere else? And I remember Richard distinctly smiling and saying, yeah, but what happens if I do train? What happens if I don't train them and they stay? Right? So the question is, would you rather train them and have them leave or not train them and have them stay? Either way, you're not in a good place. So it's about setting realistic goals and managing expectations and figuring out how to create that safe environment. But it's one of those things where sometimes leaders, they don't always want to hear what they're doing wrong. Sometimes they want to be reassured that they're moving in the right direction and then receive that gentle push to keep them going in that direction. One of the things we have to remember is that strong, agile leaders will understand momentum. They'll understand iterative change. They understand that it's not an all or nothing approach. They understand that we're not trying to get everything done all in one fell swoop. Anybody who goes and tries to do that is setting themselves up for failure. So, my advice this round is to do the best you can, figure things out, motivate and engage the team, and figure out ways that you can make impact and make a difference. And this is going to be the absolute best way to understand agile leaders and to motivate them. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And thanks, Mike, for the wonderful email. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at agiledata.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.